There are so many interesting animated worlds, but which one would be best for you to live in? What world would your average person be best suited for? Today, let's explore some animated worlds and see what's the best fit. I'll be covering Amphibia, the town of Gravity Falls, and the Boiling Isles from the Owl House. But what makes somewhere a good place to live? I'll be rating all worlds on this criteria: environments and lifestyles, dangers and downsides, benefits and resources, people, government/ruling class, and places of interest. I'll give each category a score out of 5. Then at the end I'll combine the scores to make a grand total out of 30. Now before I begin, I want to remind you that this ranking is on what location is best to live in for you, the average person. So if I give a low score to one, it's not because I dislike the show or the world, it's because I think it would be a less convenient place to live. That location may be more creative and interesting, but that doesn't mean you'd be comfortable living there. But with that out of the way, let's start with Amphibia. Environments and lifestyles. Amphibia is a harsh place. A majority of its land is swampland or thick forest. It's a very damp and muddy place. Even our main setting, Wartwood, is built over a swamp. So even what appears to be dry land can be misleading and dangerous. Every nook and cranny of Amphibia's environment is crawling with life. The animals have evolved in unique ways. There appears to be normal bugs and insects like our world, but lots of the creatures in Amphibia are gigantic compared to ours. There are bug varieties in all shapes and sizes, ranging from creatures you could ride like a horse, to insects that tower over you. While lots of the wildlife we see is insects, it's not limited to that. We see many other giant creatures, like giant weasels and herons. Amphibia's plant life is also far more extreme, with certain plants growing sentient, like the tomatoes. Amphibia is divided into multiple regions and biomes. Wartwood is located in the valley. The valley is surrounded by treacherous mountains, and the mountain pass gets covered in snow and ice, so for months you can be stuck in the valley, unable to travel. On top of this, the weather can be extremely dangerous. Storms seem to hit real hard in Amphibia, and the winter snow is spontaneous. Speaking of snow, let's move away from the swamp and look at some of Amphibia's other biomes. There's the Amphibian Arctic, which is where the second temple is located. We don't really see too much of the Amphibian Antarctic. All we know is it has high levels of snow and seems to have a lot of big avalanches. There seems to be lots of mountains and elevated land, and despite its cold environment, it's still not giant-free, as giant cardinal birds live there. Another biome we see in Amphibia is the dry swamp, which is basically just a desert. But luckily Amphibia doesn't just have harsh and dangerous biomes, it also has open plains areas outside of the valley, where the ruins of despair are. Now, despite its name, the surrounding area is quite nice. It's open fields, just lush, green, wide open spaces. There are small businesses and places sparsely spread out in this area, like Amphibia's best diner. And finally, the last area I want to bring up is Newtopia, Amphibia's capital, located along the coast. Like all of Amphibia, there are giant predators here. The coast and surrounding area seem normal enough to a regular coast, although there seems to be giant coral around. The city itself is very grand. Its architecture incorporates a lot of its coastal features, making use of the coral, giving it a tropical aquatic vibe. Overall, Amphibia has a wide range of biomes, so there's lots to choose from when looking for a place to live. They all vary in difficulty in surviving in them. There's also a lot of beauty to be found in Amphibia's nature, but there's equally disgusting and dirty things that many people would dislike. Out of the biomes I brought up, I would say only half are suitable to live in. The dry swamp and Zoom dunes, being deserts, don't seem like a good place to settle down due to their harsh weather and lack of resources or civilization. Same thing applies to the snow-covered mountains, which while yes you could technically live there, it doesn't seem practical. There's barely any civilization out there, and the snow would make daily life very difficult. So that leaves us with 3 biomes that would be suitable to live in. That being the coast where Newtopia is, the plains where the ruins of despair are, and of course the swamp. What's life like in Newtopia? If you were to integrate into Newtopia's society, what could you expect? Well, Newtopia seems to have a similar class system to human society, with lower income areas and higher income areas. It seems to offer a wide variety of jobs and opportunities. So if you plan on joining the frog world, this is the best place to find opportunity. The plains area is very sparsely populated, so you are unlikely to find much work, so you're mostly on your own if you choose to live here. And finally, the swamps. Most of Amphibia is swamp, and there are many small towns and communities here. Amphibia the show shows us what life would be like to live in one of these towns. There are a handful of jobs to be found in the small communities, but farming is the life and blood of these towns. I'll give Amphibia a 3 out of 5 for environments, since there's so much variety, there's just so many unique places, and I haven't even covered them all. We see there are underground areas and volcanic areas, but I think the ones I covered are the most important ones. But now let's talk about the many pros and cons of living in Amphibia. We'll start with the dangers and downsides. Amphibia is full of dangers, everything is out to get you, and I mean everything. Plants, bugs, animals, even the land itself can kill you. Let's start with the plants. The tomatoes are literally giant carnivorous monsters that will eat a human whole. There are mushrooms that literally explode at a touch. There are more traditional deadly plants in poison berries.
Green and red be well fed. Blue and red instantly dead. Oh wait, or was that green and red instantly dead?
There's mind-controlling mushrooms with wills of their own that can raise armies of zombie-like people. And yes, before you comment saying mushrooms aren't plants, they're fungi, which is its own category. I know. You can stop typing your angry comment right now. It's just easier to put them in this section. But anyway, by far the biggest threat you will run into in Amphibia is its dangerous wildlife. Most animals being giant compared to their Earth counterparts. Let's start with bugs. First we have the caterpillars, / coastal killer moth. Our example being Domino 2, we can see they can be vicious, fast-killing machines. We also have the zapapedals, large centipedes that can produce electricity and zap you with it. They seem to appear in large swarms, so stay away from them. We have the narwhal worm. Yes, that's the real name, I didn't make it up, just go check the Wikipedia. This beast is giant and fast. That combined with its horn would easily allow it to demolish small towns. On the topic of worms, we also have the magma worms, giant worms that literally swim in lava. We also have the sandworms, which are giant worms that live in the sand. There's giant colonies of barbarians that we see build nests in Utopia. They seem extremely hostile, immediately attacking Anne and the planters. I honestly don't know if this counts as a bug, but while Anne and the planters are hunting for food, while camping on their long trip across Amphibia, the planters are attacked by a scorpion and a panther combined. It's a feline creature with scorpion features. This creature is big, poisonous, and can track its victims with infrared. On top of that, we have lots of regular giant insects, like giant praying mantises, giant fireflies, giant wasps, you name it. This causes a constant danger. You are nowhere near the top of the food chain. Something as small as leaving a light on at night could cause you harm. Amphibia also has a lot of giant deadly birds that are out to get you, like the four-eyed giant cardinal, a giant bird that attacked Anne while climbing a mountain in the Second Temple, or the love doves, who are majestic but efficient hunters.
Love doves! Don't move or we're dead!
What? I thought they were all romantic and mate for life.
Yeah, and they spend that life massacring all living things!
Or my personal favorite, the chickalisk, a giant demonic chicken capable of turning you to stone. And finally, the creature that appears to be on the top of Amphibia's food chain, the giant herons, easily one of the biggest creatures in the show, being about as big as Toad Tower. And it makes sense, in the real world, herons are one of the apex predators of amphibians. So in a world populated by amphibians, it makes sense that they rule the food chain. Amphibia also has other giant animals, like giant lizards and giant hedgehogs, and even giant weasels. So no matter where you go, you can't avoid these creatures. The desert has the sandworms, the mountains have the birds, the coast has the ants, the volcanoes have the fireworms, and the swamp has everything. If you were to start a life in Amphibia, it seems essential to live near a community. While still not safe from the wildlife, there seems to be more safety in numbers. So again, this rules out living in the desert or the mountains, since they are so isolated. It also makes the plains area more dangerous, because there's not as many people around. And since everything is so open, it allows predators like herons to find you easier. You're exposed with no protection. The swamps have the opposite problem. There's infinite places to hide, in the trees, the water, in the bushes. Around every corner a predator could be lurking, but Amphibia has more dangers than just its wildlife. Amphibia's land is treacherous, with all sorts of potential dangers, like bogs and quicksand, and the weather can be extremely spontaneous. We see in the episode Snow Day how quickly the weather can change from normal to a frozen winter wonderland. In the episode Contagion, we see how extreme storms can be. They hit hard and fast, even small twisters come out of nowhere. Moving on from weather, I want to talk about Amphibia's annual event, the Shut-In. Once a year, the moon turns blue, and anyone who looks at the moon becomes a monster. Now, whether this is a natural occurrence or the fact that the moon is a giant space station containing horrible experiments from the core doesn't really matter. What does matter is that once a year there's a day where you can be turned into a monster. Now, at least we know the effects aren't permanent, since Polly turns into a monster, but obviously doesn't stay that way. Now, it's played off as a joke in the show, but the shut-in could be extremely dangerous. I mean, think about it. All the people of Amphibia gives out weapons and defense items on the shut-in, so something really bad must have happened. Something that scared the people so bad that it became tradition to help your neighbors and friends by giving them supplies to survive this event. If you do decide to live out in the plains area of Amphibia, then you will need to be careful of the Ruins of Despair. They contain the ruins of Amphibia's old world. They are filled with dangerous machines down there, and these machines build even more dangerous robots. Now, these are some of the biggest dangers I can think of that Amphibia can throw at you, but what are some of the smaller, less life-threatening aspects of life in Amphibia? What are the downsides to a frog-dominated world? Well, number one for me would be the food. As a professional human, I can strongly say I don't like eating bugs. Well, sorry, if you don't want to starve, that's probably what you'll be eating, for the most part. Now, it's not impossible to get food, that's more up to our human standards, but it seems pretty difficult. There's literally an episode dedicated to Anne and the Planters making a margarita pizza, and they nearly die in this episode. So if you want normal food, you will have to make it yourself, which is risky, or you can just suck it up and get used to the local cuisine. Another downside to Amphibia is just how dirty it is. Swamps by nature are muddy, slimy, and just dirty places. The show has shown Amphibia can be a gross place, and there doesn't seem to be many hygiene products. I'm not even sure if the Planters have a hot shower. I mean, look at Anne, she literally has leaves in her hair for the whole show. This may be different in Utopia, they seem more advanced and they have better hygiene, but for the majority of Amphibia, you'll have to get used to the mud. Another downside to Amphibia is its lack of technology and power. Well, at least for most of Amphibia. Kiss our modern technology goodbye, devices like phones will become useless when they run out of power. Now, we see how Anne deals with this in the show. She takes her phone to the Zappapedes, which recharge it. This itself is a very dangerous task, and they can't even achieve this without being electrocuted.
Oh, wait a second.
And let's be real, Anne's phone is a crazy good one. I want a phone that can go up to 10,000% charged, and last literally months without being charged. Overall, surviving in Amphibia would be extremely challenging. It's not for the weak. Now, just to make it clear with my scoring, the higher the danger, the lower the score will be, since the total score is trying to figure out which is the best place to live in. So I'll give Amphibia a 1.5 out of 5 for dangers and downsides. There's nearly nowhere truly safe in Amphibia. In real life, one of the things that makes our lives so secure is the fact that we don't have any creatures higher on the food chain, but in Amphibia, it's the complete opposite. There's endless lists of creatures above us. And this isn't even mentioning the dangers caused by the different classes of people in Amphibia, but I'll discuss that in a later section. For now, let's move on to the benefits and resources of Amphibia. What are the benefits to living in Amphibia? Well, let's start with its basic resources. Despite it being unpleasant, there is still lots of food everywhere. When we first find Anne, she's been surviving for a bit on her own, so Amphibia has essentials for humans to survive. The Planters live on a farm, so food can easily be grown. As mentioned, there's plenty of towns and cities in Amphibia, so there's plenty of trade to get things that you will need. But these are all surface level things. What actual benefits does Amphibia offer that you can't get anywhere else? Well, something that stood out to me is magic. While rare in Amphibia, there are people who wield magic, and it seems to be done using materials found in Amphibia, so anyone could use it. You don't have to be born special to use this magic. We even see Marcy practicing magic with Maddie, proving humans can use it. We don't see magic too often, but the things we see it do are cursing people, reanimating family pets, growing and shrinking people, and general shapeshifting. There's also tracking spells, and I'm sure there's just way more that we don't see. Now, I've talked about how bad all the giant creatures are in Amphibia, but there are some benefits to some of them. In the show, we see many insects have been tamed. All the citizens in Wartwood use snails and beetles as cars. And you know what? I think snails would be less expensive than cars. We don't have to worry about those old gas prices anymore. But there are more interesting creatures to tame. Anne in later seasons tames the giant killer moths, and Marcy has Joe Sparrow, so if you wanted, you could tame a flying creature, allowing fun, quick, and easy transport all across Amphibia. Plus, who wouldn't want Joe Sparrow as your bro? Moving on, what else can Amphibia offer us? Well, 1,000 years ago, Amphibia was a very advanced society with insane technology. Amphibia had fully independent robots. If you're smart enough, you could definitely take advantage of this. Lots of Amphibia's technology is left in hibernation underground, in underground factories. And even if you're not smart enough to salvage the technology, the planters accidentally get a robot, so there's a good chance if you risk entering the ruins of despair, you could score yourself a cool robot, which would make your time in Amphibia a lot easier. But honestly, overall, there's not really a lot of benefits to living in Amphibia. It's a harsh world. I mean, look at the premise of the show. Anne spends the first 2 seasons trying to escape Amphibia. The value Anne finds in Amphibia comes from the people, not the place itself. So overall, I'm going to give Amphibia only a 2 out of 5 for benefits. But speaking of the inhabitants of Amphibia, let's move on to the next section. The people. If you move to Amphibia, what could you expect from its inhabitants? Well, that depends where you end up. Amphibia is mostly divided by 3 dominant species, the frogs, the toads, and the newts. And there's definitely a class system here. The frogs are at the bottom of the system, being farmers and labourers. And then there are the toads, who are the military culture race. They are enforcers and keep the frogs in line, making sure they pay taxes and never rise up. And finally, there are the newts, who are the top dogs. They are the high society and city folk. So all these different groups are going to react to you very differently. Luckily, the show drops one of the 3 girls in each of these groups, so we can see how they react. Let's start with our hero Anne. She ends up with the frogs. We learn that the frogs are very suspicious people who are stuck in their ways. The town sign says, slow to accept, even slower to respect.
Oh, that's just the way these frogs are. Slow to accept and even slower to respect. It's actually our town motto.
It takes Anne a full month before the town starts to respect her, so if you move to Wartwood, you can expect lots of people ignoring or making fun of you. But despite this negative attitude, the people aren't hostile or dangerous. Well, at first they want to run Anne out of town, but besides that, they're pretty chill, still allowing Anne to live and operate in their town. But here's the thing with the frogs. They may be cold at first, but once you earn their respect, they can be incredibly loyal. Anne makes incredible friends here, and not just a couple, most of the town. So living with the frogs will be a tough start, but with time and effort will pay off well. The same can't be said for the toads. Sasha ends up with the toads, and her welcome is even worse than Anne's. She's shucked into a dungeon and remains there until halfway through season 1. She's treated very poorly, and she's only able to escape this situation after proving she's a valuable asset after Toad Tower is attacked. After proving she can fight and be of use, she's then promoted to second in command. Now this doesn't sound too bad, but Sasha aligns herself with the toads, who just want control and power. They aren't afraid to bully and kill whoever opposes them, so unless you have the stomach for that, the toads aren't going to treat you very well. And finally, the newts. Now, you would think the newts, being the top dogs, would not be very welcoming. You'd think they'd be very snobby. But when Marcy arrives in Amphibia, the newts seem the most friendly. Marcy arrives in Amphibia and immediately falls down a flight of stairs.
Woke up in Utopia, where I fell down a flight of stairs. Broke my leg, but luckily the newts have free public health care.
The first newts to find her take her to the hospital. She's treated in the hospital until Lady Olivia invites her to meet the king. Marcy quickly becomes a valued member of Utopian society. Now yes, King Andreas has special interest in Marcy because of the prophecy, but everyone else doesn't really have this. Lady Olivia is one of the highest ranking people in Utopia, and she welcomes and accepts Marcy. And when Anne first arrives in Utopia, it doesn't take her too long to make friends. The people of Utopia seem to be the most open and most welcoming. Now granted, that may not be the case if you're a frog or a toad, but for us, there's not a problem. So for Utopia, it's looking like the best place to live. It's a thriving city with lots of opportunities. It's relatively safe compared to the rest of Amphibia, but Utopia is home to King Andreas and the central government, which is the next section I'll be discussing. The people of Amphibia are very diverse, and this leads to a lot of conflict between them. Their people aren't united very well, but you as a human trying to find a place to live in Amphibia can probably get along with 2/3 of the population, some of them being more wary than others. I'll give the people of Amphibia a 3 out of 5. A lot of your luck with the people is very based on your situation, and there is a good portion of bad eggs here, but overall there's more good people to be found in Amphibia than evil. But speaking of evil, let's talk about Amphibia's government and ruling class. Now politics is something I don't ever want to talk about on this channel, but frog politics? I can work with that. Now, when moving somewhere, the local government is going to affect you. So how does Amphibia's ruling class operate? And how will it affect you? Well, first, there's a class system, with frogs on average being farmers and townfolk, toads being soldiers, and newts being city folk. This makes it very hard for a frog to succeed in upper class society. Now, this isn't impossible, we see Sal do it, but luckily for us, humans don't fit into this class system, so whoever you live with will probably decide your status in Amphibia. Like every government, Amphibia has taxes, and this is fine, but the tax collection is enforced by toads, so this can become dangerous. The Frogtown elections are also rigged, so that's not great.
Democracy wins again!
But looking at Amphibia's government from the newt's perspective, the government actually looks pretty chill. King Andrew seems pretty laid back. We don't see him do too much at first. Their government seems relatively normal at first glance, but as the show progresses, we see its true colours. Now, everything I've talked about so far is assuming you live in Amphibia before the time period of Season 3. Living in Amphibia after this would be hell. Utopia becomes a flying fortress, commanding armies of robots. King Andreas and his robots pillage and destroy. They completely drain the world of its resources, turning it into a barren wasteland. The already dangerous wildlife is given mind control collars, so now they are part of a hive mind working for the king. Factories and bases are built everywhere to build more robots, which enslave and control the people. All species of Amphibia are forced to live on the run, hiding and fighting the robots. So if you're living in Amphibia at this time, it's safe to say that the ruling class is going to affect you. They're even willing to destroy the planet if they lose. So say goodbye to wherever you want to settle. Amphibia's government is a huge threat to the average citizen. They basically ruin everyone's lives, and even before that, the class system keeps all of the people of Amphibia on edge, with lots of racism and hatred between the classes. So the government is getting a 2 out of 5. They probably should have a lower score, but I can think of some other fantasy governments that cause more trouble. But now, with all of that negative stuff out of the way, let's talk about some of the places of interest. Despite its downsides, Amphibia is home to some truly amazing and beautiful locations. Amphibia, a place of unlimited adventure, so hop on over for the trip of a lifetime. Start your journey in the valley, home to Amphibia's small communities and farm towns. Kick back in Wartwood, where you can visit places like Stumpy's Frog Thai Fusion Restaurant, the only Thai place in all of Amphibia. Then kick back and enjoy Amphibia's local spa.
Those guys know what's up.
And why not finish off the day at Wartwood's famous tea house? Just outside Wartwood is the Wartwood Town Archives, a stunning library with everything you could possibly want to know about Amphibia. Just don't stay in too long or the sunlight dial system will trap you there. The valley is also home to beautiful mineral pools atop mountains, perfect for watching the sunset in. Hope you're ready for a hike though. Amphibia's swamp, while dangerous and muddy, has much beauty hidden in it. If you visit at the right time of year, you may catch the beautiful fireflies. Traveling out of the valley, there are other beautiful sights to see, like the ruins of despair. They may be dangerous, but if you look and don't touch, Amphibia's ruins are a sight to behold. Along the road to Utopia, there are many fun attractions, like the Curiosity Hut. And if you're willing to pay out a little cash, why not visit Ribbitvale, Amphibia's fanciest and most expensive town? There are mansions and fountains everywhere. Every building just screams class. But if Ribberton isn't your style, then you can find all sorts of different luxuries in Utopia. Utopia being the heart and soul of Amphibia. It's the capital. It has everything you could want. Being close to the ocean means you're in for some stunning views. Utopia is also home to the Utopia University, Amphibia's highest education. Utopia also has its famous aquarium, home to many exquisite aquatic life. If you're hungry, why not treat yourself to Utopia's wide range of food establishments, ranging from Berg, the burger place with the best beetle hamburgers in all of Amphibia. Or why not try Sal's Wartwood-style sandwiches for that more traditional country meal. Utopia has a beautiful coral park, a sight all tourists should see. You need a place to rest after all that excitement? How about try out Utopia's Hemisphere Hotel? The hotel alone has a Ferris wheel that gives you the perfect view of the sunset.
It's even more amazing than everyone says.
And has the best coffee shops in all of Utopia. It's the perfect way to kick back and enjoy the luxuries of Utopia with your free complimentary gift basket. But that's not all. You can enjoy the ice cream shop, the hair salon, and the suit shop all in the hotel. And to cap off your visit, why not visit Utopia's arcade, a place for all ages to enjoy? And of course, you wouldn't be doing Utopia justice if you didn't visit the castle, the heart of Utopia, a beacon of strength throughout Amphibia. While mostly off limits to the public, the lucky few who get to visit this monument of power will see its truly magnificent architecture, its towers overseeing all of Utopia, and allow you to truly see its beauty. So, why not book now? Go to bearwithmeairlines.com for a trip out of this world. So Amphibia has many places worth visiting. I'll give Amphibia a 4 out of 5 for travel destinations and places of interest. So this gives Amphibia a total score of 15.5 out of 30. It's definitely possible to live in Amphibia, but it will be a tough experience. You will face constant dangers from Amphibia's land and its people. With so much tension between its people and its rulers' secret plans, Amphibia is an extremely dangerous place. Now, to narrow down where exactly in Amphibia would be the best to set up shop, my top 3 picks of places to live in Amphibia is first, Wartwood. It's a place we are made most familiar with the show. You're not going to live a life like you do here on Earth, but you will find relative safety and good companions. You will eventually build strong community ties, and your town is about as far away as you can get from Utopia and its ruler, so if things go bad, you will have the most time to prepare and react. My second choice of where to set up is along the road near the Ruins of Despair. It's very peaceful. You are far away from the swamp, so you should be mostly safe from Amphibia's predators. But you will mostly be on your own, so you better be ready to face everything on your own. And finally, my top pick on where to live in Amphibia is Utopia. Utopia offers the best protection from Amphibia's wildlife. It also offers the best opportunities for work. It gives you the best chance of living a life you could somewhat expect from Earth, having the most modern luxuries, and of course it has a lot of places of interest to visit. But if Amphibia's ruler decides he wants to start invading other dimensions, you'll be at the heart of this catastrophic event. Overall, it depends on how good you personally are at surviving on your own, how dependent on others you are. This will really determine your place in Amphibia. If you need lots of people around, then you're gonna go to Utopia. If you're somewhat capable, you'll be alright in Wartwood, but if you're a true survivalist, you can go out on your own. But maybe Amphibia is just too harsh and dirty for your liking. Let's move on to our next animated world to talk about, the Boiling Isles from the Owl House. The Boiling Isles is located in an alternate dimension called the Demon Realm. Now, the most obvious feature of the Boiling Isles is the fact that the island itself has formed from the corpse of a titan. The whole island is built on the remains of an ancient creature. So, let's start with environments and lifestyle. So most of the Boiling Isles consists of one biome. A large forest which has trees that closely resemble Earth's pine trees, but with colour variations, mostly appearing with an orangey brown hue. A lot of the Boiling Isles consists of this forest. There are also open valleys, and areas that have been cleared out for the towns and cities. The only other biome we see on the Boiling Isles is on the Titan's knee. Due to the posture of the Titan when it passed, the Titan's right knee was elevated high enough that it became like a snowy mountain. One of the Boiling Isles' largest towns is Bonesborough. Its architecture is very unique. A mixture of a somewhat medieval look, mixed with parts of various demons and creatures. It has a lot of organic elements mixed in. Bonesborough has a large variety of job opportunities. It has large markets with almost anything you could need. The town society sits at a level between medieval and modern. They don't have a lot of our technology, but instead have magical substitutes for most things, including modern phones. So if you were to move here, I think you could fairly comfortably live in this world, not losing too many of our modern luxuries. There are a variety of towns like this scattered across the Boiling Isles. There are other biomes mentioned in the Boiling Isles, like Palm Springs, a desert location on the Titan's palm, and there's Swampy Toes, a swamp located, you guessed it, on the toes of the Titan. But we don't see these locations, and based on their regions, I don't imagine them to be too big anyway. So overall, I'll give the Boiling Isles a 2.5 out of 5 for environments and lifestyle. There's nowhere near as much variety in the Boiling Isles environment compared to Amphibia, but what it does have is extremely unique. The giant skeleton of the Titan is weirdly beautiful in a way, showing that even out of death, life can spring. All the towns are extremely interesting. Every building is completely unique and strange. So there's a lot of interesting stuff here, but also the Boiling Isles' forest biome isn't very harsh. Amphibia is mostly composed of harsh biomes to live in, while most of the Boiling Isles is mostly chill. You could live on most places of the Boiling Isles, but that's not to say the Boiling Isles doesn't have its dangers. So let's move on to dangers and downsides. Let's start with the obvious one, the Boiling Sea. The Boiling Isles is surrounded by a sea that can't be touched. Now they're never specific on if the Boiling Seas is really hot or acidic, but Whatever it is, it can't be touched, so no swimming, which kinda sucks. But it gets even worse. There's also boiling rain. The rain is acid. It's so dangerous and acidic that shield spells are needed to be put up to protect buildings. We can see Ida doing this. We also see buildings collapsing under the acid rain, so it's extremely dangerous. Ida also lists off other deadly weathers that occur on the Isles. They have tornadoes, shale hell, and painbows. Apparently looking at a painbow turns you inside out. Apparently the Boiling Isles is also very susceptible to plagues, according to Ida. Another danger to the Boiling Isles is its creatures. Now it's nowhere near as bad as Amphibia's wildlife, but the Boiling Isles has a variety of dangerous creatures. Fairies may seem harmless, but they want to eat your skin, so avoid that if you can. There's fire bees, which are mostly just bees, but you know, they're on fire. The Boiling Isles being in the demon realm obviously has a lot of demons in it. Many of the demons are citizens of the Boiling Isles, but there are also many who are more beast-like the hand dragons or the sliver beasts. There's griffins, and there's also those strange detention worms. An extremely powerful creature on the Boiling Isles is Grom, a beast under Hexside School that can shapeshift into your worst fears. So the Boiling Isles has plenty of dangerous creatures, but they are far less common than they are in Amphibia. But the Owl House has something that's extremely dangerous, in the wrong hands: magic. Now, we will discuss the positives of magic, but for now let's talk about the dangers. There are spells that can petrify you, turning you to stone. There's abomination magic that can summon a purple goo monster. This can be used to create soldiers of great strength. We see that Blight Industries creates even stronger, more deadly abominations, able to create an army of them. There's memory spells that can extract and erase your memories. They can be fixed, but it means entering someone's mind, which is very dangerous. There's also more standard magic, like fire and ice magic. And there's honestly an endless list of spells that could be used to harm someone. There's also curses. The most dangerous one we see in the Owl House is the Owl Beast curse. It corrupts the user's magic and turns them into an owl beast. So really, at the end of the day, the real danger comes from people. And there are plenty of dodgy people in the Boiling Isles. For example, in episode 2, Luce is tricked by Adagast, a demon called a puppeteer, who pretends to be multiple people and can cause hallucinations. He scams and tricks unsuspecting victims. Or Tibbles, who is another scam artist, who shrinks Luce and her friends. But the most dangerous people to deal with is the Emperor's Coven, but we will discuss that later in the government/ruling class section. So now that we've covered the dangers, what are some of the general downsides? Well, for one, the Boiling Isles is apparently stinky, which makes sense since it's a rotting corpse, and it's just generally a bit gross and slimy. But in comparison to Amphibia's swamps, it's nowhere near as bad. A similar downside to Amphibia is your electronics will be difficult to charge, and would mostly be useless, although Luce does discover a way to charge her phone with magic fireflies, so it's definitely safer to charge your phone in the Boiling Isles compared to Amphibia. A downside to the Boiling Isles is that there are diseases that can affect humans. Luce gets a disease, as Ida puts it, called the common mold. This causes Luce to sprout mushrooms on her head and trip out a bit. She also seems to have the regular symptoms of a cold. Another disadvantage is being a human, you don't naturally have magic, so literally every other person on the Boiling Isles is stronger than you, leaving you unable to do things that regular people consider normal. I'll give the Boiling Isles a 3 out of 5 for danger rating. Yes, it's dangerous, but most of the danger comes from the Emperor and the bad people. But what are the benefits and resources of living in the Boiling Isles? Well, magic, obviously. While being one of the more dangerous things I talked about in the downside section, it's also the Boiling Isles' biggest benefit. As a human, you can't naturally use magic, like witches can, but there are alternative ways to use magic. Glyphs. Luce discovers the power of magical glyphs, symbols that can be used to cast spells. Some of the basic glyphs are the light glyph, which can make orbs of light. Then there's the ice glyph, which can create ice obviously, but the shape and amount of ice can be controlled by the user. There's the plant glyph, which can grow and control plants, and the fire glyph, which, if you couldn't figure out, can control fire. These are just some of the beginner glyphs, and these are already extremely powerful. If you wield them with a little creativity, the possibilities are endless. The glyphs can get even more complicated, being capable of things like invisibility, mist, teleporting, and a safety fall that catches you, and this is just a small portion of what you can do with the glyphs. But there are other ways humans can use magic. There are talismans, staffs, and wands. Talismans in particular being another huge benefit of the Boiling Isles. The talisman are creatures that can come in any shape and size. They're a magical wood carving made from talisman wood, so you can either carve your own talisman or adopt one. They will be an extremely loyal companion. A talisman is basically like a magical pet that can turn into a staff that you can use magic with and ride like a magic broom. Another form of magic is potions. Since it's based on using ingredients, a human is able to perform it. Now, unlike Amphibia, everyone uses magic, so it's not as hard to find a mentor in the Boiling Isles. Plus, not only can you find a mentor, you can get a proper education in how to use magic. The school even seems eager to have human exchange students. Being able to use magic opens up infinite possibilities. It could change and improve so many aspects of your life. But let's move on from the benefits, and I'll quickly address the resources. The Boiling Isles has everything a human needs to survive, but the food is questionable. According to Ida, there's not a lot Luce can digest, so you'd have to be very careful with what you eat. And on top of that, some foods she can eat seem really gross, like the fairy pie. So food would be limited in the Boiling Isles for a human. And to be honest, I'm not sure what the status is with the water. Luce seems to get by fine, so there must be a water source. Maybe the Boiling Isles has some water filtration system, so finding water on your own might be difficult. This may force you to participate in Boiling Isles society. It might be the only way you can get water, but there is the basics to survive there. The Boiling Isles has many resources that are specific to it. The two more prominent ones is one, the talisman wood. It's a powerful magical wood that creates the talisman, and it exclusively grows in the Boiling Isles. The other extremely valuable resource found in the Boiling Isles is the Titan's blood. The Titan's blood is probably the most potent magic. It can open portals between realms. It could even be the original source of magic in the Boiling Isles. Overall, I'll give the Boiling Isles a 4.5 for benefits. I know I mostly just talked about the magic, but it's such a useful and diverse tool with literally infinite possibilities that it has to get a high rating. Now, let's move on to the next section, the people. How are the average citizens of the Boiling Isles? Honestly, on average, they're pretty good. Most of the people in the Boiling Isles are pretty nice to Luce. Well, at least none of them seem to care, or treat her any different. Luce easily fits into everyday life on the Boiling Isles, despite how strange everyone is. So it seems fairly safe for a human to integrate into their society. In fact, there's even a human appreciation club at Hexside School, so some may even show interest in humans. So there's definitely no prejudice against humans in this world. Luce is even allowed an education at Hexside, even though she doesn't naturally have magic abilities, showing that the witches are somewhat open-minded. The actual population of the Boiling Isles consists mostly of witches and demons. Witches seem to be the most common. Witches mostly look like humans on the surface, except for their pointy ears. But what really separates witches and humans is their ability to use magic. Witches have a sack full of magic bile attached to their heart, allowing them to do magic. And the other residents of the Boiling Isles are demons. They come in all shapes and sizes. I've mentioned that there are demons that are like animals, but there are also demons who are just like people. It's honestly hard to categorize them because there's just so many demons. It's mostly used for creative freedom, so the creators can design a bunch of cool characters. But some demons show additional unique powers. For example, Warden Raff can stretch and shapeshift his arms into weapons. His body is somewhat malleable. The demons make the Boiling Isles a very diverse place. This allows a human to go unnoticed somewhat in the Boiling Isles. It also makes the people of the Boiling Isles very accepting and unfazed by strangeness. Now, I'm referring to the regular citizens here, not the guards. We will cover them later. Now, I've mentioned that all the citizens can use magic, but when they progress through school, they must choose a coven. A coven restricts a user to one form of magic. The people of the Boiling Isles are very controlled by the Emperor. Many of the people are like sheep, falling under the control of the Emperor's coven. So because of this, many are forced to choose a life of crime. So there's lots of illegal underground activity, like the night market, a black market in Bonesborough that opens at night to sell illegal items. There's also just a lot of scam artists on the Boiling Isles, so there's a fair few unsavory characters on the Boiling Isles. But being a criminal doesn't automatically mean you're bad. Ida is a wanted criminal. The oppressive government forces good people to become criminals and rebels. For example, the Coven Against the Throne, aka the Cats. These rebels are good people, fighting a good cause, but rebel activity could still interfere in your average citizen's life. Overall, I'll give the people of the Boiling Isles a 3.5 out of 5. They're mostly accepting of humans, and they seem friendly enough. But the oppressive government causes a lot of tension for the people. Speaking of the government, let's begin the government and ruling class section. In the first episode of The Owl House, we see how oppressive the Emperor's Coven is. In the first episode, we see the Conformatorium, a huge prison locking up anyone who doesn't fit into society, and it can be anything like writing fanfics, eating your own eyes, believing conspiracy theories, and just kind of being weird in general. So the laws are very unfair. One of the most noteworthy things the Emperor's Coven has done is create the Coven system. Each person chooses a type of magic they want to do, and then they are branded with a magic symbol that only allows you to do one type of magic. This really restricts the people of the Boiling Isles. The Boiling Isles is swarming with Coven scouts. They are the Emperor's soldiers and act as police. The Emperor's Coven is the only coven that is allowed to use all magic, so they can easily overpower average citizens. And while as a human you don't have magic, so the Coven system doesn't really affect you, the magic you can use is glyph magic, which is a form of wild magic. And of course, the Emperor has banned all wild magic, so you will probably be an enemy of the Emperor's Coven. We see that Emperor Belos is not afraid to have witches executed by petrification, and have it broadcast across the Boiling Isles. The Emperor's Coven is swift and harsh with its punishments. The Emperor's influence affects every aspect of life on the Boiling Isles. You can't escape it. And this isn't even mentioning Emperor Belos' master plan. The state of the Boiling Isles is bad enough, having an oppressive dictator ruling over the land, but it's even worse when your own emperor plans on executing every person on the Boiling Isles. For years, the Emperor has slowly been building towards his master plan, to use a draining spell to execute everyone in a coven. This is obviously insanely evil. Even if you don't have a coven sigil, everyone you know on the Boiling Isles will die, leaving very few survivors. This, in my opinion, is far more evil than Amphibia. While Amphibia's government completely turned on most of its people, there were still some Newts who sided with Andreas. His plan is not necessarily about killing his own people, but attacking other worlds. Andreas just doesn't have a problem killing anyone who opposes him, but Belos and his empire tricks its own people into executing themselves, and at least Amphibia's kingdom pretended to be good, so there was a time of peace under their rule, but Belos' empire is horrible from the very beginning. I'm giving the Boiling Isles' government ruling class a 1 out of 5. This government would constantly be getting in your average citizen's way. You might only have a chance of surviving because you're human, and Belos may try and convince you to join him, but even in this scenario, everyone you met is done for. But let's move on to the Owl House's places of interest.
The Boiling Isles, not your traditional idea of beauty, but it is a place of adventure and mystery. From the Emperor's Castle all the way to the Titan's Knee, there's excitement to be found around every corner. Bonesborough is the heart and soul of the Boiling Isles. With its famous market, you can find anything you want, from human oddities to fortune tellers, and all the potions you could ever need. But maybe the market is just too loud and busy for you. Well, Bonesborough is home to the magnificent library, filled with everything you could possibly want to know about the Boiling Isles. And if you're one of the lucky few who visits the library during the night of the Wailing Star, you can see the book stories come to life. Bonesborough is also home to a large convention center, hosting many exciting events, from the Coven Day Convention to the Alchemist Anonymous Convention. Maybe you like living life on the edge. Well, you didn't hear it from us, but Bonesborough's nightlife is quite lively, with its night market. A secret after-hours market where you can purchase almost anything. But probably the best place in Bonesborough is Hexside School of Magic and Demonics. The start of your journey into magic. Hexside is a place of infinite possibility. Maybe you're looking for a different kind of magic. Why not visit the Grum Tree for a romantic picnic? Maybe you're looking for something more dramatic. Why not take a tour through the Emperor's Castle? See this overpowering and imposing structure, the home to the Boiling Isles' fierce ruler. And why not finish your trip to the Boiling Isles at the Titan's Knee? It's a fair hike, but you'll be rewarded with the most beautiful view. You can see the whole island, showing its unique beauty. Book your trip today at bearwithmeflights.com.
I'll only be giving the Boiling Isles a 2 out of 5 for places of interest. A lot of the Owl House is spent between Bonesborough and Hexside and the Owl House itself. There's not a lot of places that we see that would be good for a regular citizen to visit. Also, if you're wondering why I didn't talk about the Owl House itself, it's because it's a private residence, and I'm writing this video essay as if you're a newcomer unrelated to the show. But anyway, the Boiling Isles gets a 16.5 out of 30,
Overall, the Boiling Isles is kind of a neutral place to live. While the island itself looks amazing, there's not a ton of places to see. The people are mostly nice, but it's overshadowed by its government. The Boiling Isles is a fairly dangerous place, but nowhere near as dangerous as Amphibia. But by far the best part of the Isles is as long as you're there, you can use magic with the glyphs. Now, I haven't even mentioned living on the Isles after the events of the show. The benefit is that the government is overthrown, and the people and society have improved a lot, but the island's magic leaves. So as a human, you wouldn't be able to use much magic anymore, removing the best thing about the Boiling Isles. But where would be the best place to live on the Boiling Isles? Well, obviously the Owl House would be, but since that's occupied, probably a normal house in Bonesborough. There are other towns, but we don't really see much of them. You could live on the Titan's Knee, away from the government, and you would have the best view on the island, but you'd have to deal with the cold all the time and the magical beasts that live up there. But honestly, with magic, those shouldn't really be a problem. It would be easy to survive and even thrive up there. But enough about the Boiling Isles. Let's move away from alternate dimensions and talk about a cartoon location closer to home, the town of Gravity Falls. Gravity Falls is a small town up north of Oregon. Unlike the Owl House and Amphibia, Gravity Falls takes place on Earth. So let's start with environments and lifestyles. I'll divide Gravity Falls into two sections. There's the main town and there's the forest. Let's start with the town. Despite appearing small, Gravity Falls has a wide range of locations, from useful ones like shopping malls, schools, and restaurants. There's also plenty of recreational spots as well, like mini golf, laser tag, and arcades. So the town has a bit of everything, but under the surface, the town hides secrets. All throughout Gravity Falls' town is secrets and supernatural entities, things the town folk ignore. The town folk are also equally strange in their own way. Many of the townsfolk own small businesses or work at stores. They live mostly normal lives, for the most part, oblivious to the strangeness of their town. The town sits in a large valley with a huge lake, and obviously there's a large forest surrounding the town as well. Let's talk about the forest. The large pine tree forest surrounding Gravity Falls is home to many strange things. Most of the weirdness in Gravity Falls lives in the forest. There are different groups of creatures living in Gravity Falls' forest, from the clan of Manitors, who live in the man cave, there's the gnomes, who live in their own section, and there's the unicorns, who live in the enchanted glade deep in the forest. Different sections of the forest hold different secrets. There's an area that has shrinking and growing crystals. There's secret labs hidden in the forest. There's just a bit of everything. So overall, Gravity Falls has the least variety in its environment, but there's a lot to learn and find about this place, which keeps it constantly interesting. I'll give Gravity Falls a 2.5 out of 5 for environments. The forest is a very pretty environment, but it's also an environment we can just visit in the real world, minus the magic and mystical stuff of course, so it's not quite as extreme and interesting as the Boiling Isles and Amphibia. So what are the dangers and downsides of Gravity Falls? Well, its weirdness can often be its dangers. The strange creatures can often be very dangerous. Let's look at episode 1 for example. A bunch of gnomes disguise themselves as a human, then eventually kidnap Mabel. There's the dangerous Gremloblin, a strong fierce monster that's part gremlin, part goblin, and if you look into its eyes you will see your worst fear. There's also more sinister creatures in Gravity Falls, like the Shapeshifter. Obviously it's in his name that he can shapeshift, but he's also cunning, taking full advantage of his ability, manipulating and confusing his victims. There's also creatures like the Summerween Trickster, a spiteful, dangerous creature who goes after kids with no Summerween spirit. But if you move to Gravity Falls, the creatures from the forest aren't the only things you need to look out for. There are also cursed and mysterious objects inside the town itself. For example, the arcade. Dipper accidentally unleashes a video game character into the real world after putting in a secret code, and it then goes on a rampage through the town. Or when Seuss buys a dating video game and she turns out to be sentient, taking control of all technology and using it again to go on a rampage. Danger can be found in the most unlikely places in Gravity Falls. But not all of Gravity Falls' dangers come from angry entities. There's also things like the bottomless pit. Now you'd most likely be fine falling in, since you fall out the way you went in. But according to Journal Free, you could get lost forever. Another danger is the size-changing crystals. If used improperly, you could end up shrunk, which could lead to some tough situations. It's inevitable that if you were to live in Gravity Falls, you will see some strange things. And that leads us to our next threat, the Society of the Blind Eye, a secret order dedicated to erasing strange memories from the town. This can lead to brain damage if used too much, so you always need to watch your back. But by far the most dangerous thing about Gravity Falls is its Bill Cipher's focus. Gravity Falls is ground zero for a mad god-strange apocalypse. He's always watching and plotting, using the people of the town like chess pieces. If you can forward his evil plans in any way, you can count on Bill to take advantage of it. The dangers that Gravity Falls present are wild and unpredictable. They can range from zombies crashing a party to video game characters coming to life. But despite this, most of the people of Gravity Falls get by fine. They don't disturb the strangeness of the town, so I'll give Gravity Falls a 2 out of 5 for dangers and downsides. Benefits and resources. Now, Gravity Falls takes place on Earth, so it has the same benefits and resources as we do, but what is specifically unique to Gravity Falls? Well, there's not as many straightforward benefits, and especially for your average person. Scientists would mostly benefit from Gravity Falls. Just look at Ford. There's so much to study. So many creatures are exclusively found in Gravity Falls. There's magic, ghosts, and curses. Gravity Falls could really push what we know about science forwards. But probably the biggest scientific discovery is the alien spaceship. It would provide us with a lot of knowledge. And the ship itself is full of resources, like the super adhesive, and just technical parts. Another benefit to Gravity Falls is time travel. If you're lucky, you may be able to snag a time machine off an unlucky time traveler, but honestly, a time machine is probably more trouble than it's worth, bringing the time police on you. Now, this would have to be a very, very specific situation, but if you end up in Globnor, which is actually really bad, it's a fight for your life in a tournament in the future. But if you end up there, and you happen to win, you could get a time wish. It grants the winner whatever they desire, paradox-free. So that's pretty awesome, but honestly, there's like no chance that your average Joe is getting this. What your best benefit in Gravity Falls would be is accidentally stumbling across a good magical or strange item. Now, the best possible thing you could find in Gravity Falls is one of the journals. It would completely change how you engage with this town. It'd be your guide to safely navigate the town's strangeness. But again, we are talking about the average citizen, so I think this interferes with the main plot too much. So overall, there's not a lot of benefits here, other than you will never be bored in Gravity Falls. There's adventure everywhere in the town, you just need to find it. One last benefit I thought of is the fact that there are ghosts in Gravity Falls, which means there's some kind of afterlife. So that could reduce your fear of death, but overall, I'm only going to give Gravity Falls a 1.5 out of 5 for benefits. Most of the townspeople try to live normal lives. The weird stuff normally only gets in your way. Now, let's talk about the people. Gravity Falls' citizens are generally a bit odd. Most of them are probably below average IQ.
We punch what we don't understand!
Probably due to all the memory wipes, but they're overall mostly friendly. Out of all the places we've talked about, the people are the least likely to get you in trouble here. But that doesn't mean there aren't troublemakers. Old Man McGucket, while not malicious, can cause harm. While trying to reconnect with his son, he builds a giant robot and pretends to be a sea monster that causes a lot of damage. There's also just some pretty unhinged people in the town, like the lifeguard, Mr. Poolcheck. He is extremely unhinged and very paranoid. He also lost his hand to a pool filter, probably adding to his paranoia around the pool.
Hand over the whistle, boy!
There's also Manly Dan, the incredibly muscular lumberjack, who seems pretty unhinged and aggro when he loses his temper. He can straight up punch down telephone poles.
In your face!
But despite this, he seems actually mostly friendly. And finally, there's Gideon. I've covered Gideon in a villain ranking video, but to briefly sum him up, he is an evil, controlling, self-absorbed, power-hungry little gremlin. For the sake of his image, he pretends to be innocent and cute, but if you cross him, he won't forget and forgive. Gideon is probably the most dangerous person in Gravity Falls. But besides this, everyone is actually pretty harmless in the town. But what about in the forest? A lot of the creatures in the woods actually have their own societies and are relatively intelligent. The gnomes are mostly harmless as long as they don't want you for their bride. They can be talked and negotiated with. Same also goes for creatures like the multi-bear. He is a strong bear with multiple heads, but despite his beastly form, he's actually a pretty chill guy. The manitors are very friendly and even help out a bro become manly. Just don't let them hear you listening to girly music.
That girl is you! Don't come in! Don't come in!
I think I'll give the people of Gravity Falls a 3 out of 5. I think they belong in the middle because they don't really harm you, but they're not also all your friend, like all the citizens of Wartwood are with Anne. Now, let's move on to the government and ruling class. Well, since Gravity Falls is set on Earth, the government is mostly the same, although Gravity Falls does have some strange traditions for picking a mayor. They host 2 election speeches. On the second speech, The candidate who has the most birds seen thrown on them will have an eagle fly down, and he will bestow them with a birdly kiss, which makes him the mayor. So their voting system is somewhat unreliable, in my opinion at least. But who can argue with an eagle? Gravity Falls government also hides a secret, and if you try to find it, the government might step in and stop you. Gravity Falls was founded by Quentin Tremblay III, the 8th president of the United States of America. He was so silly and embarrassing to the USA that all mentions of him were covered up and hidden away. The police of Gravity Falls will make sure no one lets his secret be spilled, so best not to investigate. But other than this, the government will mostly act normally. Finally, a government that's not trying to commit a genocide. Now, before I move on, I would like to bring up the Society of the Blind Eye. They're a secret order who is erasing people's memories. In a way, they are a secret ruling class. They are more dangerous than the actual government itself. They regularly kidnap people and erase memories. This may explain why so many citizens have such low IQ. It could be from the overuse of the memory wiping device. The side effects turned Old Man McGucket from a scientist to a crazy hillbilly hobo guy. So if you live in Gravity Falls, this will be one of your biggest threats. I'll give Gravity Falls' government a 4 out of 5, since it's not really that harmful, it's just our normal government. Now obviously you can debate if our government is any good, but I could honestly care less, so you can deal with that yourselves. So let's move on to Gravity Falls' places of interest.
Gravity Falls, Oregon, the perfect escape from your busy modern life. Come visit Gravity Falls and get in touch with nature. The small town was founded in 1842 by Quentin Nathaniel Northwest. The town has a rich history that you can see at the Gravity Falls Museum of History, but if learning about the history isn't enough, why not live it at the Gravity Falls Annual Pioneer Day? A day where the whole town dresses up and acts as if it's 1863. But maybe history's not your thing. Well, Gravity Falls has plenty of entertainment, ranging from its exciting laser tag to its thrilling arcade, with games so realistic that you'd think the characters could walk right out of the game. Feeling competitive? Why not try Gravity Falls' mini golf? And on those hot summer days, why not have a swim at the Gravity Falls pool? Just don't break the pool rules, or you might be staying longer than you like.
It's the nights that are the hardest.
Gravity Falls Lake is the perfect place for some family bonding over some fishing. The lake has an abundance of large fish, like really large, like so large that you should probably be leaving your swimming for the pool. Who knows what's down there? Hungry after all that fun? Well, Gravity Falls' famous Greasy's Diner is a classic local experience. There's also plenty of other places to go grab a bite to eat, like Yumberjacks or Smoky Joe's. And if you're looking for something a little more romantic, there's The Club, a very fancy high-end restaurant. You can find anything you could possibly need at the Gravity Falls Mall. Not sure what to do next? Well, maybe the town's local psychic can help. Visit the Tent of Telepathy, where you can meet Gideon, the psychic. He's expecting you. Gravity Falls is surrounded by a magnificent pine tree forest, perfect for getting in touch with nature. Hiking through the forest is the perfect way to escape the ever-watching eyes of society, because there's nothing watching you in the forest. Nothing at all. And, of course, you can't visit Gravity Falls without seeing its most famous attraction, the Mystery Shack, a small museum of strange and mysterious items, home to things beyond our understanding, the perfect place to glance into the unknown. Who knows what the shack has in store for you? So, discover the mysteries yourself today and book the ultimate summer vacation at Gravity Falls by booking your trip today at Bear With Me Airlines. I'm going to give Gravity Falls a 3 out of 5 for places of interest. It's a tourist town, so there's lots to see, but it's all stuff you could mostly see in the real world. The more interesting stuff appears when you look deeper and see what the town's hiding. But with that, Gravity Falls' total score is 16 out of 30. Now, for previous sections, I've talked about the best area specifically to live, but since it's a small town, I think anywhere would be fine. If you live near the center of town, then you're further away from the creatures and the monsters, so that's probably good. But if you live near the forest or the lake, then you just have a beautiful area to live in. So now that we have all of our total scores, let's see how they rank. In third place, we have Amphibia with a 15.5 out of 30. In second place, we have Gravity Falls with a 16 out of 30. And of course, in first place, we have the Boiling Isles with a 16.5 out of 30. Amphibia is just too harsh to live in for me. Gravity Falls is still just on Earth, so it's a bit too close for home, but the Boiling Isles really sold itself to me with its magic. But what do you guys think? Which animated world would you like to live in? In terms of finding the best animated world to live in, I don't think we are even close. Let me know what worlds you would like to see me cover next. As always, I'll be doing a poll on my channel to see what videos you guys want to see next. Here are the options. Option 1, a part 2 to this video where I cover Cartoon Network shows. I want to cover The Land of Ooo from Adventure Time and Beach City from Steven Universe, and another one that I'm not quite sure about yet. So if you have any suggestions, let me know. Option 2 is I could do another villain ranking. I've got a few ideas for that. I could cover White Diamond from Steven Universe, the Nowhere King from Centaur World, and maybe Evil Morty from Rick and Morty. I'm not really sure about that combination of characters. They don't really feel like they fit very well, but let me know if you got any better suggestions. Another villain ranking I could do is evil magic users. I could cover the Ice King from Adventure Time, I could cover Magica Dispel from DuckTales, and a third magic user that I can't think of yet. So again, suggestions are appreciated. And the third option is I could cover mentor/guardian characters. I would cover Grunkle Stan, Eda, and Hot Pop. Now, I'm not putting this in the options for now, but I haven't forgotten about the protagonist ranking. I'm just not ready to do that yet. With that, I think that's everything I've got to say. So go vote on the community tab, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for bearing with me.